Welcome back to Reliving Retro. This is Season 6, Episode 1, and we have a big one for you this week. If you're new here, we pick one game at random every single week, invite a guest on to rate it with us in 5 different categories: story, gameplay, visuals, sound, and how well it aged. And if you're new here, we have a Patreon. If you want to head over there, it's $2 a month to get your game played as quickly as possible. We have a Patreon episode once every month, and you can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, Discord, TikTok, Spotify if you're watching on YouTube if you're listening on Spotify, and we also play every game that we pick, I guess, every single week over on Twitch. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to thank our guest this week, and I'm going to have him introduce himself. Go ahead, man.
Hi, You Can Beat Video Games from the YouTube channel You Can Beat Video Games, and that's you like the letter U, not the whole word.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. If you want to just give a quick synopsis on what you do over on your channel.
So I play old video games. It's mostly NES, but there's also Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Game Boy, and I've done one TurboGrafx game as well.
Nice.
And I give like a brief history on the game, how it's made, and then I do a deep dive on the gameplay, and I show a practical strategy for how to beat the game, but I will also pepper in some like fun tricks that you can do as well. So it's a little bit of everything, and I think it's a lot of fun. We have a good time with the games, and I've done over 100 games at this point. So it's been only a couple years, but it's been going very well.
Awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I found you a couple years ago. I believe the first video I found was the Maniac Mansion video. Now I have to ask, do you have a favorite game that you've done? Maybe not even like the favorite game, but like you did it and you were like surprised like how much you enjoyed the game before you went into it. You know what I mean?
Wow. Recently I covered the Shadowrun game on Super Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
And that game is extremely interesting. Like it's an RPG, but it's an action RPG.
Yeah, it is interesting.
And it takes place in the future, but it's like 2050 or whatever, and it's not realistic that this is what the future is going to be. So it's there's like some unintentional humor on top of it all, but you get to interact with the characters in a very interesting way that like is extremely advanced for the Super Nintendo. And yeah, that's a game that surprised me a lot.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that one up actually, because that was the game that we started off season 5 with. We always start off with an RPG game, and yeah, we started off with Shadowrun. I played the Super Nintendo version, and I actually had a pretty good time with it. Yaiser played the Genesis version, and you weren't a fan, right?
No, I wasn't. I just couldn't really get into it.
There's a lot of people in the comments of my video that were interested in the Genesis one, so there's some fans of that game out there.
Do you think you'll ever do the Genesis one as well, just to see the difference? Because this game does have major differences between the two.
I played a little bit of the Genesis version, but I've never finished it. And I am interested in getting into it farther, considering that the first Shadowrun video was very popular. So I think that people are interested in seeing where that's going.
Cool.
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting franchise. And I think the whole cursor mechanic with the NES controller was very tough to grasp initially, but once I started playing it a little bit, it made it more fun, I thought. So I don't know, it's definitely an interesting game, but I think that's cool that was the one that you brought up, just because we recently had experienced that one.
Oh yeah, cool.
Also, what was your introduction to gaming, you would say? You don't have to say like exactly how old you are or anything like that, but maybe your first console, how you got it, that kind of thing.
Well, I remember being very young and playing like Pac-Man and stuff like that in the arcade. But the first console that I got was definitely the original Nintendo NES.
Nice.
I wanted a Game Boy, and I like dumped the money out of my piggy bank as a child and like counted it up, and I had maybe like $12. And I was like, this is not going to get me a Game Boy. It was very disappointing. And that year for Christmas, I got an NES, and I was like, oh, wow, I guess I don't need a Game Boy right now. Although I did get a Game Boy later. But I was like, yeah, sweet. Finally.
Very nice. What were some of the first games you got with your NES?
Well, I mean, I had Mario that came with it.
Right.
We went to the store, and there were not very many titles to pick from that were available. And I
Oh, really?
remember I got Pinball. And I
Yep.
mean, Pinball was fine, but like it's not a game that can hold your attention for like a very long time. So I played a lot of Mario at first, and then game rentals started to come up. And so I
Mhm.
did a lot of that. I don't think I ever owned more than maybe like 10 games at a time, but I would borrow them from people too. And like, I don't know, some people probably stole my games and I probably ended up with some of theirs. It's just kind of how things ended up in the back in the 80s.
For sure. Yeah, I lived through the same thing pretty much. What would you say some of your favorite types of games to play are?
I mean, I like all kinds. I like some of the like slightly offbeat ones. Like I covered Marble Madness recently, and so that's just very different.
That's a game I loved playing as a kid.
Yeah, it's a fun one. Also, I used to play that with my brother and like just try to like knock him off the course all the time. Like would never win. Just just kill each other and like
Yeah,
see who can die before level 3.
that's funny. So what games have you been playing lately? Maybe not even specifically for your channel, but just, during your off time, like what games have you been playing?
The only game that I really had time to play a lot in my off time, and I think I made time for it, was Elden Ring.
Okay. That's a pretty
I-
common answer, honestly, for our
I
guests.
loved Elden Ring. Did you guys
Yeah.
play Elden Ring at all?
Yeah.
I haven't
currently
played it, but Yaiser, I think, is on his like 5th playthrough or something.
No, I'm still on New Game Plus, just the first New Game Plus. But
Yeah, I did
Yeah,
it
dude,
one
it's hard.
time, and I hit New Game Plus, and I started it a little bit, but I didn't have time to play it very much. But Elden Ring was a game that I didn't think that I was going to like. My wife bought it for me. I had played through Demon Souls,
mhm.
so way back at the beginning on PS3.
Yep.
And
Gotcha.
Demon Souls scarred me for sure. Like I did not like Demon Souls, but I beat it. I was like, I'm gonna beat Demon Souls, and like I did beat it through sheer force of will, mostly by shooting things with bows from very far away.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there's like there's a boss in Demon Souls, like one of the last ones. He's like the king of whatever. You
Mhm.
can shoot him from like a mile away with a bow. It's like you're not even in the same like room with him.
Yeah, just cheese them.
Yeah, there's a big dragon. You can do that too as well. But like, yeah,
I
so,
still
like,
haven't played any of the games in that series, and I still think that I definitely need to at some point. Yaiser, you said your favorite was what, Dark Souls 3?
Before Elden Ring, I think so. Yeah. But
Oh,
I
Elden
think-
Ring took okay. I thought you were saying Dark
I
Souls
think
3
so,
was
dude.
still your favorite.
The good thing about Elden Ring is if you get stuck or hung up on something in Elden Ring,
Go
you can just
somewhere
go
else.
do something else.
Mhm.
Like there's 9 million things you can do. Like in some of the older Souls games, you can get stuck somewhere and be like, I have to do this thing,
That's true.
or I'm stuck here, so I got to grind or figure out
Yeah.
something to get better so that I can beat this part.
Mhm.
Yeah, and Elden Ring is just like, yeah, go do some other part of the world, go do some random cave or whatever that has a boss at the end. There's so much you could be doing in there. It's a pretty good time.
Yeah, it's great.
Nice. Yaiser, what have you been playing lately?
Oh God. I did just recently fire Elden Ring back up.
Did you?
Try to get because the DLC is coming fairly soonish. So I wanted to get to a point with my second character because I don't want to do it the first time in New Game Plus. So I gotta get another character up to
Yeah.
yeah.
So my daughter loves going on the Switch and checking out like my friends' profiles and seeing what they've been playing lately.
Mhm.
So she wanted me to ask you next time I saw you, how are you at 200 hours played of the new Zelda?
Oh, that's all Sarah. I haven't played it even a little bit.
You haven't played it at all.
No.
I played a little bit of that.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
she's been really into it, obviously.
Yeah, it's like 200 hours. I was like, wow, that's insane. I was like, I didn't even think he was playing it that much. Well, I
didn't
knew
play it at
Sarah
all.
was playing it a little bit, but I was like, if it's 200 hours, he must have started something.
I bought it for our Mother's Day, and that's a lot of hours.
She's been doing since Mother's Day. Huh?
Yeah, but also she'll like just put the thing down without turning it off, so it's probably
Oh, I
not
gotcha.
that many hours.
Yeah, 200 is still a lot though. She's
Yeah,
definitely
it's
playing a little bit.
Pretty close.
She's
to
doing
that.
all right.
yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I have been playing obviously I've been playing Chrono Trigger. That's our game this week. But I've also been sinking my teeth into Sea of Stars as of late. It just came out a few days ago, and me and my daughter already have about 5 hours into that game, and I'm absolutely loving it. So Sea of Stars, if you guys aren't aware, is an RPG from Sabotage Studios. It's the developer of The Messenger, which I absolutely loved. So yeah, get your hands
I like
on
The
that
Messenger. That game is sweet.
The Messenger is so good.
Really
So
good.
One of my favorite games probably ever, honestly. Enough to make me buy the $200 physical copy for the Switch. Like,
That's up there for like best Metroidvanias. I think I liked
Yeah.
Hollow Knight a little bit more.
yeah,
But
I've heard a lot of good things about that too.
yeah, you haven't played Hollow Knight? Hollow Knight is insane.
I haven't played it yet. No,
That's really good.
I haven't really got into the whole like indie Metroidvania scene yet. I started playing Blasphemous a little bit, and it couldn't really hold my attention as much as The Messenger could.
Blasphemous was okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought too. I was like, that's okay. But yeah, The Messenger, I couldn't stop playing it. Like I probably put like 30 hours into that game just on like my first playthrough.
In Hollow One, you get these charms, and you can only equip like so many charms at a time, and they do like kind of like mild to medium effects that like make you better in the game.
Oh, really?
But figuring out like your loadout on those is very interesting. You can find a whole bunch of them.
That's cool.
And you eventually figure out that there's a way to equip more of them than you're supposed to have on too. So there's all kind of cool secrets like that you can do as you get deeper into it. And just the world is amazing. The Hollow Knight is great. I can't recommend that enough.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll give that one a shot.
If you like The
beat Sea of
Messenger,
Stars, though. Yeah, after I beat Sea of Stars.
if you like The Messenger, you have to do Hollow Knight. That game is awesome.
That's fair. Yeah, I'll because I can get that on the Switch, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, so I'll give that a shot, and then I'll report back to you later on.
No, that game is good.
All right, let's move on to the game of the week, though. It seems like the game of the month because the gap between episodes was forever. But Chrono Trigger. Now, Yaiser is a big fan of Chrono Trigger. He played it before we even did this before. This was my first ever experience with Chrono Trigger. You can be video games. What was your experience with Chrono Trigger prior to this episode?
And so I had Chrono Trigger on Super Nintendo, like right when it first came out. I was extremely excited for Chrono Trigger when it was coming out because I had heard about what it. You know who made it, right?
Square.
Well, not just Square. So back in the day, there were two video game companies that were the best for RPGs. There was Square that made the Final Fantasy series, and there's Enix that made Dragon Warrior, which was called Dragon Quest, and back in Japan, and it is called Dragon Quest now. Yep. There was a pen and paper RPG called Dragon Quest that was blocking them from calling that in the United States. So they had to call it Dragon Warrior for like the first so many games that we got here. And we didn't get a few of the games, at least until we got them on like Game Boy Advance later. But anyways, so the guy who made up Dragon Warrior, the main guy, his name is Yuji Horii. And Yuji Horii is like a hardcore celebrity in Japan. Like people that don't play video games would know who he is. Like people would know LeBron James that don't watch basketball.
That's crazy.
Right. Like he's that big of a deal in Japan. So him and the guy's name is I think it's Sakaguchi. Hironobu Sakaguchi, I believe, is the guy who made Final Fantasy. Am I right on that?
I believe you.
Yeah, Hironobu Sakaguchi. So sorry, Japanese pronunciations. So that guy was the mind behind Final Fantasy, teamed up with the guy behind Dragon Warrior to make a new game, and they brought along Akira Toriyama, who was the artist for Dragon Warrior and is also the artist behind Dragon Ball. So like it's the dream team. Everything that you like about RPGs is all coming together in one place. I don't even know how Square made it happen, how they got Yuji Horii to get away from Enix to make a game with them, but like
it's literally like at the time was the dream team in Japan, right? Like
exactly.
It's like the top three things, maybe minus Mario, was like the top three things of Japan at the time.
I mean, as far as RPGs go, like there was no bigger people in RPGs than the team that put together Chrono Trigger.
That's cool though. So you experienced its release. I definitely didn't. I knew of the game when I was a kid, but I wasn't really huge into RPGs when I was a kid, so I never cared to venture out and get it.
Like, I didn't know those guys by name, but I did know that the team from Dragon Warrior teamed up with the team from Final Fantasy, and they're making a game. Like, psh, sign me up. How fast can I buy that?
Yeah. The only time I can even like remotely compare is when I heard that actually when I was a kid, I didn't know that Super Mario RPG was like an RPG. Like I didn't know what that meant as a kid. I just remember getting a new Mario game and I was like, sick, this is gonna be awesome. And I was like, what is this? This isn't Mario. I'm very confused. But when Kingdom Hearts came out, I was like, wait, Disney and like Final Fantasy together? Like that's insane. And then I found out later that like Square and Nintendo worked together on Super Mario RPG, and I was like, oh, that's pretty nuts too. And I found out that apparently this has happened a ton of times, and I was just not paying attention to things as a kid. But I think it's really funny to see. I think it's really cool, I should say, to go back and see like these super teams, form together to make these awesome games.
I was tuned into that. Like I got Nintendo Power magazine and I was reading about it, and I was very excited, and I was able to get the game. A couple of my friends had it as well. So I remember being able to talk to people about what was going on in the game, and like so very cool experience. And then I got it again on PlayStation when they re-released it.
Right.
And I remember playing it a second time on PlayStation. They didn't really add a lot to it, but I mean, it was still awesome Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, and that's how you played it, right, Yaiser? You played the PlayStation version?
I remember that we had both. I don't remember which one I played, but I definitely remember playing it when I was little and just being blown away by like what it looked like, and all the music was just so beautiful. And then, so as soon as I got like my first Android phone, I realized I could get emulators, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking try to play through this again. But then I jumped in the bucket to fight Lavos way before I could have, and I fucked up my save state. I was too far into the fight to go back, so I had to give up on that play, and I haven't played it since then. But I did it. I did it this week. Did it
this
earlier.
Week, and you beat it, right?
Did it about an hour ago. Yeah.
Very nice. I didn't get a chance to beat it. I did put about 7-8 hours into it, and I was having a blast with it. Unfortunately, like work stuff happened, got super busy, and then Sea of Stars came out, got super busy. So, it happens. But I do definitely want to finish this game at some point because I was having a blast with it. Spoiler alert, we'll get into it. My ratings are pretty good for it. And you can beat video games. You said you beat it before, correct?
Absolutely. I've beaten this game multiple times. There's 13 different endings. I didn't look that up. I'm pretty sure that's the number though.
I believe you.
And I've gotten them all for sure. One of the endings is super cool where you actually get to talk to the developers. They're like represented as NPCs in like like a weird alternate universe, and you can go up to them and talk to them, and it's like all the people that made the game put a little message in for you to read as the player.
That is awesome. That's something I gotta look up all like the YouTube endings.
I think that's the ending you get for beating Lavos, like right at the beginning.
Oh, got you.
But I'm not 100% on that. It's a New Game Plus thing to do. Like you're not gonna jump right in and kill Lavos like 5 seconds into the game.
Yeah.
But you could do it on New Game Plus.
Yeah, you can jump in at the fair or something, right?
Right at the fair when what's the girl character's name? Is it Marley?
We were just talking about that right before the show. I'm like, is it Marl or Marley?
Is it Marl or Marley?
I think I've heard people call her Marl. So we'll just.
I always called her Marl as a kid, but I feel like Marley is absolutely
a better
possible.
Name.
Like, why couldn't it be Marley?
Yeah, it's a better name too.
Right? Like, it makes more sense. I was like, well, I was reading Marl, but maybe I'm just wrong.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either. But yeah, well, let's go with Marl for now.
But yeah, she gets like sucked into a time warp or whatever, and you can jump in there and fight Lavos on New Game Plus.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I read about that.
It's crazy all the different like things you can do in this game with the time, but we'll get into that here because we're gonna jump right into story here.
So yeah, I mean the story is it's the apocalypse. Lavos is this like gigantic monster, and it's going to destroy the world. Although you don't know that right at the beginning. At first, it seems like it's about this other guy, Magus, Magus
he
seems like
definitely
he's
seems
the
like
big
the
bad.
primary, protagonist for sure.
Yeah, yet Magus joined your team later
Yeah. Yep.
and is
You
one of the
want him.
best characters. In order, and I can't remember all of the characters' names. You have to help me out if you played it recently. So the best character is Chrono. Chrono gets an attack towards the end called Confusion, I believe. It's either Confuse or Confusion. But basically, it allows him to deal 4 hits on something. And him doing 4 hits on something is just nuts. Like that just wrecks bosses.
Yeah, especially after you get Rainbow and
it's better than his next move, which is called like Luminos or something like that. It's like a big lightning thing. Yeah, like that hits the whole screen, which is cool. But the Confusion move that hits 4 times, like that's where it's at.
Yeah, Confusion is definitely the best physical attack in the game.
Yeah, like that attack is sweet. That's what I'm always using on the final boss. And then I like the cave woman. Is her name like
Ayla?
Ayla?
Yeah, Ayla.
Ayla, because she has a 3-hit attack.
Yeah,
that she gets later. So her
I forget
character
what it's called.
She's sweet. And then I like Magus. Magus is very powerful in general.
Yeah, it's got that
Marley is like good if you want to heal her. Never was a big fan of what's the like nerdy woman?
Luca,
yeah. I don't know, like
I mean, the whole story doesn't take place without Luca, though, right?
I used her in my final party because Flare is really strong.
You get like some all right team up attacks with her.
Yeah, Flame Sword 2 is nasty with her and Chrono.
Although the team up attacks kind of fall off a little bit later on, like towards the end of the game, you don't need them as much.
Yeah, because then your final single attacks
Your guys
stronger
are just better,
than those.
like,
yeah,
in general.
Yep.
There's the robot.
Yeah,
Does he have a name or is he Robot?
I think they just call him
Robo. Yeah, he's all right. The frog guy is good too. He is an attack. It's like drops a big frog on things, and if you have low HP, it does a ton of damage.
Yeah. There's
I
a
didn't
point
get to the
in
part
one of the.
where I was going to say that I didn't get to the point where they say Frog's real name.
Oh, I forget.
I do think that comes up at some point. He was a human at one point.
Yeah, I forget what it was.
Yeah, they turned him into a frog, but I can't remember what his real name was. Yeah, so I mean, as far as story goes, you can beat video games. What would you rate the story out of 5 stars?
I would give this game a 5 out of 5 on story. Like each individual character has like story related quests that you can do later in the game, and they really flesh out like each one of them. Like, so well, I think there's other games that have a ton of characters in them, like Suikoden.
Yeah, Suikoden 2. Yeah, we played that one. There's like 64 playable characters or something. That's too many.
Those characters just don't have the same kind of resonance as the ones in Chrono Trigger. Hey!
Yeah, there's no depth, right?
No.
There's no depth to those characters, I feel like. Yaiser, I think you can go ahead and say what your rating here is for the story. I think I know what it's going to be, but go ahead.
I can just go ahead and throw out this 5 stars real quick.
You can go ahead and throw out the 5 stars.
Yeah, it's an easy 5 for me because, like what You Can Be Video Games is saying, not only is like the main story like pretty, it switches you up a little bit, throws you a curveball. Turns out the bad guy, you save his life, he's on your team now. The real bad guy is going to destroy I don't know if it's just the world or like the universe or whatever, but
there's multiple timelines, right? So I guess it's like whole universe,
and
multiverse or whatever.
Yeah, and then after you get to the point where you can get to the end of time, every single character in the game has a pretty like in-depth side quest that gives backstory, gives all that stuff, gives you pretty good rewards. Do you get mostly ultimate weapons doing it that way? And yeah, bro, this game is I'm gonna go ahead and call it a masterpiece. 5 stars.
Okay. I'm
it's this kind of story that you just want to see it out. You want to know, like, I want to know what happens to these like side characters.
You get attached.
I do agree with all that. However, I will say that I feel like Chrono as like a main character is fairly boring. Agree? Disagree?
One cool thing about that though is at some point in the game they make you go without him.
Right. Yeah,
Nice.
there's. I
And
will
that's
say
a pretty
that's.
cool twist. Like it's unexpected.
I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, this show is full of spoilers. So anybody who's new here, full of spoilers. But I will say that spoiler got me a little bit. I did not expect that to happen. I did not think that Chrono would just die.
I didn't think it was gonna either, honestly.
Like on your first playthrough,
This
or
is
did you
this is the
forgot?
first time I got that far.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when that happened, I was like, okay. So I mean, we got to get him back somehow, right? The game can't just continue without him. I mean, luckily there was a way that it
Getting him
worked its
back
way
takes
out.
some doing.
Yeah.
For sure. Because
Yeah.
what you got to get like the body double or whatever, go back into time and replace them.
Yeah.
You'd think it would be easier with a time machine.
Yeah, you think so, right?
Right? Just hey, Chrono, why don't you leave for the next 5 minutes? Like stuff's gonna get real ugly. No, they made it a little bit more complicated. I couldn't land on a 5 for story, but I landed on a 4.75.
Okay.
Okay, pretty
Yeah,
close.
That's better than a 4.5.
Pretty close. All right, let's. Unless anybody else has anything else they want to say about the gameplay, we can move over. Or I'm sorry,
The
it's
story?
story. We can move over to gameplay. All right, Yaiser, I'm going to have you kick off the gameplay. Go ahead, buddy.
Okay. As far as it's not quite a turn-based RPG though, right? Like, what? I don't know how to
I
explain.
think it's
really.
is it like
It's a little
active time
different.
battle, kind of like Final Fantasy 2 and 3?
Yeah. But
Well, 4 and 6.
right.
There you
right.
go. I was going to say you might have some people in the comments trying to correct you.
Yeah, but like as far as something like this goes, I am a big fan of it. I really like it. I like the double attacks, the triple attacks. You got to find certain items in the game in order to use certain triple attacks. I like the fact that you can level up you can learn all your spells, not necessarily at the same rate you're leveling up, because you get magic points, which gets you to learn spells, and then your XP, which gains you levels. So like, there is a real, I guess, negative to not using characters, because your side characters that you're not using will level up, but they won't get the MP and they won't learn their attacks, right? And I thought that was pretty interesting. But yeah, man, I don't know, dude. I just fucking love this game. I had so much fucking fun playing this game. I'm giving it another 5 for gameplay. Love it.
All right. What about you? You can beat video games.
Well, I'm going to give it a 5, but let's talk about a couple things about the gameplay that I think are really key here. Number 1 for me, not random battles.
Yeah.
Love
The
it.
monsters are just out there on the field, and you walk up to them and suddenly like a battle happens. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Yep. Big fan.
Yeah.
If you
It's
play
actually
these
working
old
out.
RPGs, like some of these random battles can be extremely frustrating, like
Yeah.
especially in some of the older ones.
Yep.
Like they come up all the time.
It's one of my least favorite things about RPGs, which is why I gravitate so much to Earthbound, for example, is because it's not random encounters. It's sprites on the screen. And when I realized that this game was also that way, I'm like, yes, thank God. I'm so happy that they have them on the screen, because
It's so
just
good.
like you see where you have to go, and then you're trying to go that way, and then you hit like 3 random encounters on the way, and it's super annoying sometimes.
just so annoying.
Yeah, that's a huge plus for gameplay.
I don't know why more games like after this didn't conform to that.
Right.
And like if you play like Final Fantasies on the PlayStation, they went back to the random battles, and I feel like more games should have been stayed with what Chrono Trigger was doing,
Right.
and went
sure.
this direction instead.
I feel like for the developers, it was just a way to make it easier on themselves. Honestly, I can't think of any other reason why they wouldn't
Right,
do
it's
it.
like cheating almost. It's too easy to just make random battles. It's like a lazy.
Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
lazy. Because you're skipping the sprite on the screen, and then you're just making the animation of going into the battle. So I don't know. It seems like it was just them being lazy. Because like I said, I can't think of a reason why they wouldn't do it.
So
It's
and
definitely
because
better.
of this, right? It's not a grindy game.
No,
You
it didn't
don't
feel that
really
way.
have to grind, and it's like almost discouraged.
Mm-hmm. It
Right? If
didn't
you
seem
want to
like
get a
you had
bunch of
to at
high
all.
levels, you need to just kind of like new game plus it a few times.
Yeah. So I was following the strategy guide kind of on the on the interwebs there, and it was telling me that you could go through the Black Omen. I think in like 4 different like time periods is the word.
Yeah.
But once I got through it once, I'm like, I'm strong. I'm going in. I could beat these guys. I don't need to go through 4 times. We're good. We're good to go. And I didn't have to
one
grind
thing
at
I
all.
think that will drive some people nuts about this game though is if you get a treasure chest like in the past, it won't be in the future. And like if you get it in the future, it might be like a different item or whatever. And there's there's a lot of that going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like that stuff will mess your head up if you're like a completionist and you're like, oh, do I need to open the treasure chest now? Do I need to leave it because I need to go back and get it like in the future?
Yeah. So you can get them. You can like deny it, like say you don't want to grab the treasure, go to the future, get the stronger version of it, and then go back and
Then
get the
go
weaker
back and
one,
get it
too.
again in the past
Yeah.
because it'll still be there.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty fucking cool, man.
This game does time traveling and like they do it like in a pretty intense way where like, yeah, you go back into the past and you like take things out of treasure chests and then they aren't there in the future. Like it's
Yeah, it seems like it's done really, really well, especially considering the time and the capabilities of the console.
Yeah.
I mean, I like time traveling in general. Like as a game concept, I think it's pretty cool. Even if it's just like, let's go jump back and do like a couple periods of history, like Turtles in Time,
right,
or whatever. Like that's just kind of a fun.
That's the one I was going to bring up too because
variety.
it's like simplistic. It's a simplistic way to do time travel, but it works for what it needs to do, and it is a fun way to to just experience a bunch of different time periods.
Exactly.
You can beat video games. You gave it a 5, right, for gameplay?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so we're all on the same page here. I gave it a 5 as well. I was desperately looking for something to take it down from a 5, and I couldn't find anything. It's really good. It hooked me almost immediately too. Now I'm curious though. You guys both played on the like more turn-based version, right? Because there is at the beginning you can kind of select the battle, like the battle variety or whatever, where it's like right away, like that the enemies will attack you or something.
Yeah, the active, you can change to active or maybe
like
static or whatever. I don't know.
I always did the active battle, but
I turned it off because I like to be able to think about what I need to do.
yeah, I think it's fine either way, really.
Yeah, me too. But I was curious if either of you had tried like the active one, because I don't think I could do it. I think it would remind me too much of like playing like General Chaos or something where there's just way too much going on, and I'm like trying to control all these characters at once. That would probably drive me crazy. So I
always played active.
Oh, nice. You only played active?
Yeah, pretty much always. I don't think I've ever tried it the other way.
The other way I think is a lot slower. It's a lot more like a turn-based and less, the active. I mean, I didn't play it, but it would seem like it would be more like a real-time strat or something like that, because you're moving constantly, right?
It plays kind of the same way, but you just like can't sit around and think about stuff.
Yeah, you just gotta go.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, so maybe it wouldn't impact gameplay too much for me if I switch to that one. But yeah, I mean, I had it at a 5. I thought it was really, really good. And in fact, just playing Sea of Stars right after I started playing Chrono Trigger, I was so impressed with like how much Chrono Trigger inspired Sea of Stars. Like the gameplay is so similar. So if you like Chrono Trigger, definitely give Sea of Stars a shot, because it's very close to the same game.
Cool.
At least gameplay wise. All right, let's move it over to visuals. I'll start it off with visuals. I gave it a 5. I had to. There was a couple points where I was like, nah, I got to give it a 5. But so at the very beginning, right, where you walk through the fair and you think you're just enjoying the fair like a normal common person, and then you find out you get put on trial for things that you had no idea you were doing at the time.
Yeah.
That's a great part of the game, actually. I actually love that portion, the whole trial, and I thought that part was super interesting. I had no idea that I was grabbing that guy's lunch. I didn't know what that was. Okay. I just saw something on the table and I was like, that looks like something I can take. And then I went over, took it, and then I got in trouble for it later. Had no idea that was something I was going to get in trouble for. Yeah. Pretty funny. I will say there's a little bit of comedic relief there, but the whole trial, like experience, I thought was really awesome. But that doesn't have too much to do with visuals. It's just that I didn't understand that was a lunch that I was grabbing. To be fair, the guy was talking about a lunch, but I didn't see a lunch there. The visuals in this game I thought were so amazing. I thought that they were like really, really good just going into it. And then when it gets to the point where like you jump into the portal and the time warp happens, I'm like, yo, that looks sick. And not to keep bringing up the comparisons between Chrono and Earthbound or whatever, but Earthbound has these visual effects in them that, spoiler alert now, I'm going to give Earthbound's visuals a 5, because when you play like the actual like battles and the background is all moving and it's like the psychedelic, like I haven't seen a Super Nintendo game quite emulate the same thing that Earthbound does with the battle system until Chrono Trigger with the time warp. The time warp looks so cool.
Yeah, it does.
So as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, all right, it's cemented now. It's a 5. And a lot of like just the character sprites and everything, the scenery looks amazing. It's a 5. It's fantastic. Yaiser?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, buddy. Just slap another 5 on there. Dude, I think on character design alone, I think other things could look shitty if they wanted to, which they don't. But I think I'd still give it super high. Have you seen, like, you've obviously seen some of the like the art that people do, like the fan art or whatever, dude.
Yep.
Everybody, you can see why everybody loves these characters, bro. They're so sick.
Well, yeah, and it helps for sure that it's Akira Toriyama. I'm a huge Dragon Ball Z fan, so I mean all the characters designed by him, and yeah.
I don't know how much they paid Akira Toriyama to do the character designs for this game, but I don't think they could have paid him enough, because like the guy delivers.
Yeah, he does
over and over again. Like if you look at the art on like the old Dragon Quest games, just like the slimes and the monsters and all like the stuff that they used to like create hundreds of monsters, he drew all of that stuff just like sitting down there and be like, all right, I think I'll make a monster. Okay, here we go. Here's a sweet monster. Okay, here's a sweet robot. All right, here's the sweet, like he just keeps drawing stuff and it's just like all awesome.
Yeah, he did an amazing job for sure.
The only one that like disappointing kind of looking, which turns out not to be him at all, but like the Lavos shell and head, I'm like, really, this is the final boss? Like it's just a spiky shell and a little like like little snapper mouth, but turns out that's not actually his final form. Yeah, and then the final form is fucking sick looking.
Yeah, the sprites are all amazing, and you know we've had this conversation 1,000 times on this show, but the 2D sprite work is always going to age way better than anything 3D rendered. I'll always stand by that. The Super Nintendo is probably the best aging console of all time, in my opinion. So just, I mean, that's going to speak volumes. So for where we have it in age too, when that comes up. But I was absolutely floored with these visuals. It's peak Super Nintendo. They absolutely did everything they could to maximize what they could get out of the Super Nintendo, in my opinion. You can be video games. What do you have for visuals here?
Oh, I definitely have this as a 5.
Okay.
I can remember a couple of the bosses just like off the top of my head. There's a giant T-Rex that you fight at one point.
Yeah,
and
in the prehistoric age. Yeah.
They're all well animated too. Like the T-Rex like opens its mouth real wide. It's like very cool. A lot of old RPGs just had static characters that you would be fighting against, right? Like the enemies barely moved if they moved at all. And these ones like have a lot of animations, very interesting looking monsters that you fight.
All right, if we're good here for visuals, then we can move on to sound. Yaiser, you want to kick it off for sound?
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why I don't have a record collection, never did. Don't even have a record player. But I seen a record. We were at Too Many Games. I seen a record of the Chrono Trigger soundtrack piano covers, and I guess I'm starting a record collection because I need that. Because the soundtrack of this game is just off the charts, man.
No record player, but he bought it.
I'll get one eventually. That's secondary to having the record. It's an easy 5 for me again, man.
Yeah. I'm gonna follow suit here. I also gave it a 5. Some of the music in this, you know, what's so funny is we have a beer Olympics that we do twice a year, and Yaiser used one of the songs during one of his events where you did the battle music.
Yeah, one of them. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and it just sounded so good. Like
Yep.
it sounded totally fine during our beer drinking competition. Like it was great. What was I gonna say? Oh, the battle with Magus. That track is so good. That's one of my favorites in the game, I think. What about you? You could be video games.
Oh, I'm definitely a 5 on this too. So they brought over the composer from Final Fantasy to put in some tracks on this. It's Nobuyo Uematsu. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his name.
You're
but
doing way better than we would. So continue.
the music in like Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy VI is like top notch, and does it again for Chrono Trigger. Also joining him was another guy, Yasunori Mitsuda, who went on to do games like Shadow Hearts and some stuff like that. So really strong composers for this game, and it comes through. Like it's the kind of stuff that you'll just be humming like when you're not playing the game.
Yeah, I had the battle
for
music
sure.
stuck in my head for like a week. I couldn't get it out. Like the battle music, the battle music too is like also kind of just fine, but it's also amazing in its own right. I don't know, like that was just stuck in my head forever. Frog's theme is really good. Love that one.
So goddamn good.
I remember as a kid, like I had a cassette recorder, and I would record the music like from the game, like as I was playing it, and then I would listen back to it later, and I would jam to some of these.
Fuck
like
yeah, dude.
I started with Mega Man, like Mega Man
Man's a good
2
one.
and Mega Man
That'll do
3. Like I would jam to that stuff. And then when Super Nintendo came out, Super Nintendo blew me away with music from like day one. I remember my friend had it before I got Super Nintendo, and Super Mario World and Sim City. Sim City has good music on it. I was like, wow, the music just sounds amazing on your new like Super Nintendo. Like I have to get this.
Yeah, it's amazing. The Super Nintendo, again, just for what it could do as a console, I think this game got everything it could out of it. In honestly, in every single one of these categories, really, gameplay, visuals, sound, especially. But yeah, I mean, if we're good on sound, we can move over to how well it aged. You can be video games. You want to start us off here?
So I'll give it a 5 for aged. I would go so far as to say that if you like video games, you should give Chrono Trigger a try just to find out if turn-based RPGs are your thing or not, because it may be one of the best ones of all time. It might be the best turn-based RPG that there is, like starting out at the very top. So try this one out, and if you hate it, well, then you're not going to like Dragon Warrior, right? Like you're not going to like another one. So I would recommend that everyone give this a shot, like open-minded, try it out and see if it resonates with you, because this game was ahead of its time when it was made and is still good today for sure.
Yeah.
The amount of hours you can get out of this game, that's a thing that always blows me away, is like a game from the 90s. You had to pay still like 60 to 70 bucks for a game back then. So that's a lot of money, like in terms of like inflation or whatever. So you really had to get your money's worth out of these games. So that's one of the things that I'm starting to kind of consider here when I go into aged, and I'm trying to process like how well did this game age. And the fact that like it's like a 25 to 30 hour game, like on a single playthrough, and then you can play through it up to 13 different endings. Like that's wild. That's so much replayability.
Yeah.
And actually, I think this game, I think it actually benefited this game a lot. Not that it really needed it, but that I went from this game to Sea of Stars immediately, because just seeing all the stuff that they put, like stuff that like Chrono Trigger started in a game that came out just this year, just this week, is amazing to me. Like it obviously was before its time, and obviously still stands the test of time, considering they're still making games this way. It's a 5 for sure. It's easily a 5.
Yep.
Yaiser?
Yeah, easy 5. Easy 5. It ages perfectly. It's ages better than wine. I don't know what you call it if it's better than that, but
this was the easiest grade I had to give today, was how well it aged. There were a couple times where I'm like, I could probably nitpick and say it's not the most beautiful game on the Super Nintendo visually, because I think that maybe Donkey Kong Country still might take that. Again, you can agree to disagree if you'd like, but this game, just how well it aged is insane to me. If you like RPGs of any kind and you haven't played this game yet, you absolutely need to go back and play it. And
100%.
Yeah, just emulate it or whatever. It's like a $200 cart, you know what I mean? Like if you don't need to do that. It's crazy. There's also, you can get if you have a DS, you can play Chrono Trigger on the DS, which I think that one's starting to go up and now a little bit too. So that one might be like $60-$70 or something like that. There's also the one that came out for the PS1. That might be your cheapest version, honestly.
Probably, right? That's what I would assume.
Yeah, but as far as overall grades go, we have you both at a 5, and I am at a 4.95. This is easily the highest rated game that we've played so far, and I gotta say, like going into it, I'm like, Chrono Trigger has a lot of hype, and then it has its haters too, where some people are like, Chrono Trigger is not the game that everybody says it is. Chrono Trigger is not like the best Super Nintendo game. It's not one of the best RPGs. There are people that are like that. I think they're wrong. They're wrong. I only played 8 hours of this game, and I think they're wrong.
They're absolutely wrong.
So
this game came out in 1995.
That's all you need to say.
1995.
Episode over.
This game is insane. You can really tell when you're playing Chrono Trigger that the people that made it cared and had passion about it, because you wouldn't put 13 endings in there like if you didn't care, right? Like why would you?
Yeah.
No, they were having fun,
right?
They were having
you
fun.
only have to turn in one, right? We're only requiring one from you guys, but you're going to do 12 more because you want to.
That shows for sure that it was like a passion project, and it wasn't like something that like the studio was like, we need to get this game out. You know what I mean?
Not only that, but these guys were all at the top of their game. So it was like they basically let them do what they wanted to do. They said, you guys make the best RPG that you can make, and the sky's the limit. Just do anything, whatever you think is awesome. And that's what happened. We got it. We got Chrono Trigger, and
home run.
It was like kind of hard to recreate, really. Have you guys ever played Chrono Cross?
No, I never got into it.
So Chrono Cross has a lot of haters. It is not as good as Chrono Trigger, not even close. It's not a bad game, but like the fact that it has the Chrono name on it, like is just such a high thing to live up to. And it's on PlayStation 1, and like it kind of like looks like a PlayStation game. There's like some 3D-ness to it that's like not aged as well. And it does connect back to Chrono Trigger eventually. There's also a million characters in it. It's not as good as a game, but like you can't do Chrono Trigger again. It's the kind of like lightning in a bottle, getting this team together that just too hard to recreate.
The way you described that reminded me of a game that we played a few seasons back now. We played Star Fox Adventures on the GameCube, which was, for what it's worth, on its own is a fine game. But the fact that it has the Star Fox title to it, you expect to play a Star Fox game, and it's not a Star Fox game. It's more like, it plays more like a Legend of Zelda clone, but it's not as good as Zelda either. So it's just kind of stuck in this weird spot where it has this Star Fox name on it. So Star Fox fans hate it, and then Legend of Zelda fans aren't going to like it because they could just play Legend of Zelda. So like if they had just originally left it like Dinosaur Planet or whatever, it probably would be like considered like a hidden gem for the GameCube. But now it's just Star Fox Adventures, the not Star Fox game.
Contra Force.
Contra Force.
I think of that one a lot. That was supposed to be a game called Arkhound, but instead they kind of put Contra's name on there, and it's not as good as Contra, Not even close.
That's the whole thing. Sometimes developers are like, here's the game, here's what it is. And then the marketers are like, that's not going to sell unless we put Contra on it, and then it'll sell. And then so it sells, but like people are like, that's not Contra. Nobody likes that game. It's not a Contra game.
It's like, yeah, it's not Contra though.
Yeah.
We feel ripped off.
Yeah,
that's
right?
what happens when you do that, right?
For sure.
You feel a little bit ripped off. I wanted Star Fox. I got Zelda.
Yeah, it's gonna be really hard. I think if anybody were to ever try to like recreate Chrono Trigger, try to make. I mean, again, I know I've brought it up a couple times. Sea of Stars, I think, has been amazing so far. I'm only 5 hours in, but it's been amazing so far. But it doesn't have like, this is Chrono Trigger 2. You know what I mean? Like if somebody tried to do the whole Chrono Trigger 2 thing, it would already have problems before you even started playing it, because you're already trying to live up to something that is a literal masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Chrono Trigger. Normally we say, would we recommend that people relive this game? If you've played it before, if you've played it before, go out and play it again. If you have never played it, go out and play it. I think I'm confidently speaking for everyone here.
I can't recommend Chrono Trigger enough.
Yeah, 100% go play it. I can't recommend a ton of RPGs because I haven't played through a ton of them, but Chrono Trigger is definitely one that I would recommend.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now's the time of the show where we randomly select what we're playing next week, and then we will have our guest guess what we're playing. You guys ready?
All right.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to hit that wheel. All right. So we have I guess it's technically a platformer or an action platformer, but also kind of like a hack and slash type of game. Developed and published by Sega and Sega Virgin Games. Released in December of 1989 for, I guess this one came out for the Master Drive or the Mega Drive or the Master System technically, but it also came out for the Sega Genesis. Any guesses?
You said it's like a hack and slash?
Yeah, kind of like a hack and slash, like action platformer.
Action platformer, like so Landstalker?
It's not Landstalker, but I see where you're going with that. You want me to give it to you?
You got another clue?
I can give you another clue. There were three versions of this game. One didn't see the US. The last one didn't see the US. I guess I should be more specific.
It's like Golden Axe then.
It is Golden Axe. Yep.
Okay, Golden Axe.
Nice.
Yep, Golden Axe. I'm pretty pumped to play this one. I used to play it all the time when I was a kid because the Sega Genesis that I got when I was a kid came with a cartridge called the 6-pack, and and Golden Axe was on there. So that was one of the first games I ever played on the Genesis. And I wasn't a huge Genesis kid growing up. I had both the Super Nintendo and the Genesis, but of the few games I did play on the Genesis, Golden Axe and Golden Axe 2 were always up there. I had a lot of fun with these games. This might be a fun one to play together, Yaiser. Because you can do some co-op on this one. So if we get a chance throughout the week, hopefully we can get together, maybe record some gameplay about that, because that'd be pretty sick.
All right, cool.
Yeah, so you can beat video games. Are you experienced with Golden Axe?
Golden Axe is an alright game. It was originally an arcade game called, I think, The Golden Axe. It was on the Sega Arcade System something. But so you have the little guys that you can like kick for potions is pretty cool. You have animals that you can ride in this one.
Yep. I always thought it was hilarious kicking those like little dwarf guys.
Yeah, three different characters. I think they're all like pretty similar, but like maybe a little bit of different range in what you can do with the magic.
Yep. Yeah,
it's a pretty good game. What's the bad guy called? Death Adder? Is it Death Adder?
It is. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
This should be a fairly quick one. It said on howlongtobeat.com, it says the main story is about an hour long.
Oh, cool.
So that's not too bad. So as long as we can get through it, it should be a pretty quick playthrough.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit like Streets of Rage, where the second one is the better one.
I've heard that the second one is better. Yeah, Golden Axe, the original one for me is the one that's like super nostalgic. I kind of feel the same way about like Donkey Kong Countries, for example. DKC 2 is usually considered the better of the best of the trilogy, I guess. But the first one is always the one that I enjoy playing the most. All right, so now's the time for You Can Beat Video Games to give us a retro recommendation to add to our master list. Now, anything that we consider retro would be pre-HD era, so anything before the Wii, PS3, and Xbox 360, cutting it off at that PS2 gen. Just so, do you have any recommendations for us?
Is Xenogears in there?
Oh, Xenogears is not in there. We have not played that one yet.
Nice.
Xenogears is pretty sweet.
Now, that is a PlayStation RPG.
PlayStation.
Correct?
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's from Square.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an RPG, but it's one where part of the time you like pilot mechs, and you do need to upgrade the mechs. And another part of the time you're playing with like your outside of the mech characters, so you need to kind of work it both ways.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting, and it's got like the like an Amnesia story, so classic RPG trope there.
Okay. So similar to Shadowrun in the sense you wake up in a room and try to figure out where you are and how you got there.
Yeah, there's like they definitely flesh it out pretty well. Like it's a big game for sure, but pretty cool RPG.
Cool.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely can't wait to get to that one. RPGs are tricky for us because we try to, we play a new game every week, but RPGs we want to give a little bit more time to. So we tend to wait until we have a 2-week space to play it. So yeah, I mean, there's so many RPGs we can't wait to get to playing. I want Yaiser to get to Earthbound at some point. I just recently booted up Final Fantasy 3 for the first time. Just because I had to record a video that I got it for the Super Nintendo collection, and the intro to that game. Yeah, exactly. Six technically
for the
Final
hardcores.
Fantasy. Yeah, exactly. Don't kill me, Final Fantasy people. I meant 6, but it's 3 on the cartridge. 3. Okay,
I've played it. That one's hard.
But yeah, so Final Fantasy 6 or 3 on the cartridge, 3 here, whatever. That intro is so epic. Like, it's so crazy. Just
we're talking about the
play.
lightning thing, or the part where they're in the mechs and like the credits come up.
Yeah, the whole thing is. I just thought it was so crazy.
Sweet. I can watch that intro over and over again.
Yeah, it's nuts.
And that song, like, da-na-na-na-na.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, it's sweet.
It's so good. It made me want to play the game right then and there. And I'm like, no, I have other things I have to do. I'm a father of 2 children. I need to go upstairs. That's funny.
I mean, you don't got to tell me about RPGs. I mean, doing my channel, anytime I cover an RPG, it takes a very long time. Even like a more simple one, like Shadowrun, is a simpler RPG, like as far as they go. But yeah, I mean, so many hours go into making something like that.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I can't. All right, man. Well, thank you very much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. If you want to just tell the guys one last time where they can find you.
So yeah, it's You Can Beat Video Games with the letter U instead of the word U, and it's on YouTube. And I would say that if I could recommend a few of my videos, my Super Mario Brothers 3 one is super crazy. Like there are so many tricks in Super Mario Brothers 3 that I didn't know about, and I thought I knew everything before I started researching the game. Yeah. And I found so much stuff that just like mind-blowing tricks that I just would never have known about. Lots of cool stuff in that one. Recently, somebody just did a speed run of Duck Hunt using my Duck Hunt strategy from my Duck Hunt video, and he beat my time on speedrun.com for getting the kill screen. So if you don't know, you can actually beat Duck Hunt if you can finish 100 levels.
Oh, really? I didn't know that was a game
there's a
kill
screen that comes up. Like, it gets all crazy, and like check out my video on Duck Hunt. It's one of my best ones, I think, actually, because I actually talked to a real speedrunner who runs Duck Hunt,
Yeah, I
and he
haven't
gave
seen
me
that one.
like the tips on how to be really good at it, and then I put it into practice, and I get the kill screen, and I
That's
like show a
awesome.
practical way that anybody can do it.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
So
That's
really
sick.
cool. But yeah, a speedrunner just did it, and yeah, he beat my time. But I mean, the channel's called "You Can Beat Video Games," not "I Can Beat Video Games." So like
Mhm.
the fact that somebody else was able to do it better than me is that's what the channel's really about at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah, it's awesome. It's definitely an awesome channel. Like I said, I found you for the through the Maniac Mansion video where you show all the different ways to beat Maniac Mansion, which that game in itself, there's so many different ways you can beat it. So if you guys are at least interested in like the Maniac Mansion stuff, definitely check out his video on it because it's really good.
When I was researching that, there was a number of those that I did not know about.
Yeah, there's a ton of them. There's so
Right,
many
like I
different
knew
ways.
about what you could do, like with there's the one where the meteor is on the talk show.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
was like,
Yeah,
wow, I
because
did not
Oh.
remember this.
yep, because you penned like his book for him
There's like
technically. Yeah.
manuscript or whatever. Yeah. And there's a couple ways that can go down. Like if the
Yeah.
cops come or they don't show up.
It's so crazy. And like then there's certain ones too where like you can get that ending with like a dead character. And so like there's only like one or two
Yes.
characters that you can see. So yeah, that game is so interesting with like all the different endings and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely check out You Can Beat Video Games on YouTube. As for us, you can check us out on YouTube if you're listening on Spotify if you're watching on YouTube. Then you can also check us out on Twitter or X or whatever it's called nowadays. You can check us out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitch, and all that stuff. Pretty much anywhere people post stuff, we're posting stuff. So check us out there, and take care. And next week we're gonna be back playing Golden Axe. So until then,
Yeah.
everybody, have a good one.
So
Peace.
thanks for having me.
Of course. See you later.